way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to a birthday edition.
That's right.
Of the Phixated podcast. I am your host, Mike Azzolina, and I am joined tonight by a guy who doesn't think I'm handling my light situation correctly, or should I say my lighting situation correctly. Regzy Boo?
Yeah. So first of all, happy birthday publicly. I know
Thanks,
I
buddy.
texted you this morning.
Very nice message, by the way. Cheers. Thank
Cheers
you.
right back at you, buddy. But happy birthday.
Thanks.
Now
and yell at me.
Yeah. And then second of all, you're just wrong about what you're
I'm
doing.
not.
You are.
Listen,
Azzy, there's a light. It's right here. It's been plugged in since the day I bought it. It's the exact same one that you have. Exactly. It's been plugged in. It's been plugged into the wall every second of its existence, and every time I turn it on, it turns on.
I want to break it.
This is user error at its finest.
It's not user error.
It is.
Regz, I have the light that I am using right now, the new light that I got, which looks great, by the way.
It does.
Is plugged into the wall the same way this one was plugged into the wall. I got a malfunctioning light.
I'm coming to your house. I'm going to fix it in 30 seconds.
I'm telling you right now, you will not fix it in 30 seconds.
What do you give me?
I will buy a round of golf.
There you go.
I will pay for a round of golf.
Fair.
I will pay for it.
Yep. I'm coming. We're scheduling the tea time, and I'm going to fix that light in 30 seconds.
This thing is absolute garbage. It does not work. I've plugged it in. I've charged it. I've left it plugged in, and it does its stupid blinking thing.
Proof of concept.
Whenever I do.
Proof of concept.
Proof of concept. And this is proof of concept.
It's not.
I'm holding it.
Yeah, I know.
Exhibit freaking A.
No, yeah, you're wrong. You've messed it up somehow, and I'll fix it. It's fine. It's okay.
These are the moments we need a TikTok for, by the way.
You do that. I'm too old for TikTok, even though you're older than me. I can't handle it. I'm not.
I am older than you.
By like significantly.
I wonder if we asked our viewers how old they think we are, what they would say if they don't know us.
They absolutely would think I'm 45 years old.
How old do you think? How old?
And
do you
they would
think?
I'd think you'd probably be in your early 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, you're past your mid 30s now. You're in your mid 30s now, but
I mean, yeah.
I could easily give you 31, 32.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. You're looking great.
Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate that. I'm going to put this piece of shit back down.
Me, on the other hand, they'd hear about my 3 kids and they would hear about like how old man I am. And they'd be like, he's 45 years old. And really, I'm the youngest of our entire group.
You are. Stein
is a year older than me.
Stein's
full year.
A papa. Stein's a papa.
He is.
Well, hey, listen. Aside from the light,
we started that argument before we even pressed record, and we were like, and you instantly said, no, this has to be our intro. And it was a great idea. And we stopped arguing. We literally stopped talking. We wanted to save the raw emotion.
We did. We had to take a pause. We had to take a pause.
We did.
I had to go get a koozie.
Yep.
And luckily my computer wasn't. Actually, it was working at that point. But I had to go get.
And
a
your
koozie.
wife was adjusting your new light because you broke the old one.
Well, if I broke it, you're not going to fix it. So do I get a round of golf if you're wrong?
Yes.
All right. Sweet.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to get a round of golf.
Those are the stakes.
It doesn't work.
All right.
It doesn't work.
We'll see.
And it has to work for a prolonged amount of time.
Yes. For the exact.
It cannot.
Nope.
It cannot blink.
Nope. The exact same way mine works.
All right. And if that happens, I just got 2 lights.
Yeah.
More shine on the money maker, baby.
You got to put one on each side. That's what it is.
That's going to be the first TikTok. More shine on the moneymaker.
There you go. Azzy is our social media manager for TikTok.
So yeah, I don't have our Twitter, but I actually think I'm going to do. I'm going to start taking clips of our podcast and putting them on social media.
You had our Twitter, and I got to send you the password again.
Yeah, because I deleted Twitter.
I know.
Altogether.
You need to get it back so you can start tweeting again.
All right, I will.
All right.
I'll do that. All right. Hey, packed show tonight, man.
Woo,
We got
bet.
we got a guest coming on in a little bit. Really excited about that. We'll talk to that in a second. But a couple of quick, because we got to acknowledge the other teams in the city. Sixers lost 133 to 126 to the
Dallas is not good.
Mavs
We'll
tonight.
talk about that some other time, but like,
We're gonna get into them next week. This show is dedicated to something totally different.
yes,
We're gonna get in. We'll get into the Sixers. They're disappointing us
we'll
quite
get
a
there.
bit right now.
We'll get there.
But here's another thing we're going to talk about in depth next week. And that's the hiring of 2 coordinators. So they did it just in time
That's
for
right.
the combine. The combine starts today.
Literally announced
and
it at the combine.
They nailed it. They nailed it. Great job by the Eagles to make us look like fools. Offensive coordinator, I think we knew this.
Yeah.
Like I don't think this came as much as of a surprise to us. Brian Johnson, who was the quarterback coach, which makes sense, right? He's got a really long-standing relationship with Jalen Hurts.
Mhm.
So this is the logical step. And he's very well respected. If he didn't get this OC job, he would have gotten another OC job.
I think he wasn't he already, I think he got offers for other OC jobs.
I think he either got offers or he had interview offers.
Yeah, he had at least interviews.
Sure. Yeah. So honestly, either way, that's a good hire.
Yep.
It's a good hire for your franchise quarterback who has improved under him. And it's just a good hire because I think the players really like him.
Yeah.
Too. On the other side, they went out of the organization. They did not go with Denard Johnson. They went with Sean Desai.
Yep.
Who was I feel like he was the passing game coordinator for the defense, the defensive back coach. I can't remember his exact position with Seattle. I will say this. He is coming very highly regarded. Like there's all kinds of good things coming from him. Emmanuel Acho put out a video yesterday. I sent it to you where he talks about knowing somebody who played for him and said he was the guy who did in-game adjustments at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who did them. He made the changes. Very well respected. Comes from Vic Fangio's tree. And Vic Fangio is one of the brightest defensive minds in the game right now. He's probably a little, I don't think it's fair to say more conservative than Gannon. I think it's conservative in a different way. And, we'll have to dig into it a little bit more and really get a better understanding. So by next Thursday, I'll make sure that I do, so we can talk a little bit more about Sean Desai and what this defense is going to look like. But they are getting a lot of praise for the hires, both, which is great. It's great. So good stuff on that front, Regs. But let's get to the real reason for the show. Brian Hamilton. And you'll hear me say this again. Brian works in the production department with the Jersey Shore Blue Claws, which is the high A affiliate for the Phillies. Now, again, I say this when we get to the actual interview, but I'm going to say it now so you hear it twice. Disclaimer: he does not work for the organization as a whole. He's not a mouthpiece for the organization. When he talks to us tonight, he's not talking from the organization. This is his perspective, his views as an individual who watches these games up close, watches these guys up close. And let me tell you, like, what a fun interview this was for 2 baseball geeks, Rex.
Yeah, it is like ultimate baseball nerd, but it's fantastic. But I think like we had talked about that, we reached a really good balance of talking about, guys that are in the system, but you're not going to be shocked by a lot of the names that you hear. And I think just the insight that Brian was able to provide as a fan who has been able to watch these guys with his own eyes. It's just we keep being able to get people on this show who add such a unique perspective that neither you and I can bring to the table, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect time to talk about it with spring training happening and fans out there seeing a lot of names that they know and they don't know. It's just a great time to talk about the farm system as a whole and, prepare our fans and listeners for names that they might see coming up, names that might contribute to actual major league wins at some point in the season. So it was a great conversation. Brian is unbelievably insightful. and informed about these kinds of things, and was just really great to talk to about it.
Yeah, a true blast. And when we get done, what we're going to do is just reflect on a couple of points, because there are some really great moments from him. But I agree. I think what I really appreciate, and you'll hear this when we get going, is his really innate ability to tell a story within describing a player. And I appreciated it from start to finish. It felt like every time he talked about a player, there was a little story that he had that sort of went alongside of it. And I really appreciated his ability to do that, because it's a really real perspective of these guys, right?
Yeah.
We see them on the field, and that's what they are. They're players.
Mm-hmm.
But he saw and was able to give us, more meat to that bone of, something that they did on the field, or something that, he experienced live, or just some cool stuff, some good stuff. So again, we're going to get right into it. We certainly appreciate Brian's time and his willingness to do this, and talk to us a little bit about, the minor league system that we don't often get into, or, feel like we have a deep enough knowledge base to get into. So stick around for the interview, and then afterward we'll reflect. And then the big announcement, Regz. I got the cleats.
They're
sitting
right
next
there.
to me. What pair did I get, baby? More importantly, let's go ahead and dive into our interview with the one and only Mr. Brian Hamilton. Brian, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to jump right in. All right, everybody. We are really excited to have with us an old friend of mine. This is a man who about 10 years ago, I started like my own little podcast tour with Philadelphia sports, and Brian Hamilton was one of the guys who joined me on that adventure through philifans.com. And I always looked at him as a guy who was really, really into and knowledgeable about the Phillies minor league camp and their system. And so we wanted to bring him on and talk to us a little bit about what's going on in the system. This is a good time of year to really focus on those guys. So Brian, welcome, man. It's been a long time, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here, and good to see you both.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
We've been excited to get you on here for a little background, so that everybody knows. Brian spends a lot of time kind of studying the system, and but a cool little note about Brian is this past year he started in the production department with the Jersey Shore Blue Calls, which is the high A affiliate of the Philadelphia Phillies. Disclaimer: he is not like a part of the organization in terms of the minor leagues, but he sees these guys up close. So like he is watching them with his own eyes. He told us before the show how he like saw Bailey Falter play, talked to his father. Like those are the experiences, that you get being at those minor league stadiums. Brian, speak a little bit to that. Like, I know I didn't prep that question, but I'd love to know like the things that you get to see and experience through the eyes of, working in the production department and just checking these guys out on a daily basis.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I have a little bit of background in public address announcing in sports too. I work in education is my day job, so to speak. And so a couple of years ago, I saw that the Blue Claws had an opening for a public address announcer. They have a job fair every year, and I saw that they posted for that, and I was like, oh, what the heck? I've done some high school football and basketball. I'll give it a shot. And so they auditioned me and stuff, and I was fortunate enough to be hired. Now, they were clear that they have a full-time public address announcer already. His name's Jeff Fromm. He does a great job, and so I'm kind of just a fill-in there, and kind of jack of all trades too with them. I've run the scoreboard. I've been behind the camera for a few games. I've kind of just hung out in the press box a little bit and talked to scouts with who happen to be there eating the food or in the press box or whatever. I just try to hang around and keep my eyes and ears open a little bit. as Mike said, I'm not an official member of the Phillies organization or the baseball operations side or anything like that. And so the things I say tonight are not going to be, like officially from the club or anything like that. It's just more as a fan, who has followed the minor league system for many years. And, I've had a unique opportunity over the last year just to be a little closer to it. And hopefully I can bring that perspective to y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people we could even ask to be on that has actually seen this with their own eyes. Yeah. Like, I've been to a couple of minor league games here and there. Like, we were on vacation in Clearwater this past summer and just happened to go to a game. We were like, well, why don't we just go watch a game? And like, that's as far as I'll get in my minor league, first person experience. But we're really cool to have somebody like you who's seen these guys and just watched them. Like, it's a big difference to like hear everything you hear and trust the scouts in the team and what they're saying about these guys. And in spring training, you get to see it a little bit, right? This is the one time that fans like me, or a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, even see the names on the back of the jerseys of some of these guys. Like, usually they're just a name on a screen, they've never seen what they look like outside of a headshot or anything like that. So it's really cool that you have that experience, and I'm excited to see what you've seen, and listen to what you've heard and all that stuff. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks. It's a lot of fun. And for any fans who are interested in kind of that side of things, if you travel to Clearwater and go to the ballpark, I recommend that you check out the Carpenter Complex. Of course, that's where Major League Spring Training gets started before the minor leaguers show up. And actually, I believe today is the first day of minor league spring training down there. So the Phillies are probably pretty much moving their operations over to the daycare ballpark. And the minor leaguers, there's a couple hundred of them, at this point. In the season, are taking over those 4 fields and starting their workouts on the way to the season starting in early April.
Crazy. We're so close. And it comes on the heels of a really incredible season. One which included a lot of youth, some youth that came through the system and some youth that they brought over from other organizations that have started to pay some dividends early on in their career. But I think where I want to start is that system. There have been a lot of overhaul. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we move on in the show. But there's a lot of differing opinions about the Phillies organization in terms of what's there in the minors, right? They're top heavy at some positions, almost barren in other positions. It kind of varies when you look at it globally. So I want to get your thoughts right off the bat, Brian, about if you could sum up the system. I think this is a fair place to start before we dive in a little further. Sum up the system in a word or a phrase. What would that be for our listeners? A sum or a phrase or a word that would describe the system as a whole?
Well, I would describe it as a work in progress, guys. If you look at the system rankings of the Phillies farm system and some of the national publications that do that, ESPN's guy, Kylie McDaniel, has them at 24th out of 30 major league clubs in terms of their organizational quality. Keith Law of The Athletic has them at 22. And I think that's pretty much would be the industry consensus right now, that in terms of ranking their system, they'd be in the bottom third. But I do think it's important. The point you did make is important, though, that the system was able to bring guys up to the major leagues who contributed to a World Series team last year. People think about, you can think of Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott, but also less heralded guys, Bailey Falter, Nick Maton, Matt Vierling. These guys contributed significantly to a World Series team. And so you do need the top of the line guys like those first round picks, Alec Boehm and Andrew Painter. But you also, over the course of a season, you know, those role players are important too. And the system, to their credit, was at least able to contribute that to the World Series club last year.
Yeah, another guy that, I'm super high on. I talk about him pretty much every show. who came through the system is Connor Brogdon, and you know the things that we've seen from him over the course of his early career. You know, there's been early payoffs, there's been bumps, but he was big after that meltdown against the Braves in the divisional series. He got them through some really big innings in the NLCS game. I think it was 4. He brought him late into the game when Bailey couldn't. And that was really important for them. So yeah, I think there's a lot of promise across the board, and that kind of leads me into this next piece. And you know, Regz and I haven't really dealt a whole lot with this conversation. We spoke to it here and there in terms of, you know, Brian Barber and Preston Mattingly, just that top level, that top shelf of player development. But I think one thing that I've appreciated is that drafting and development piece that has started to come a little bit further than it did under McPhail and Klentak. So I'm going to ask you to kind of speak to what is the difference, either good or bad or both, when it comes to where drafting and development is as an organization right now compared to where it was 3 years ago.
So the Phillies brought Preston Mattingly in about a year and a half ago. Of course, Preston being the son of former New York Yankee Don Mattingly. Dave Dombrowski brought him in, and also Brian Barber, who was already on board at the time, the director of scouting. Those guys were tasked with rethinking the player development system from top to bottom. And in terms of the drafting strategy, I would say that really emphasizes tools more than it did in the past. You know, and that is big time velocity, you know, from the pitchers. You know, you look at a Mick Abel, you look at an Andrew Painter being the Phillies' first round draft picks most recently. Big time velocity. You can compare and contrast that, for example, to a couple of pitchers that were high draft picks before that. Tom Eshelman, Connor Siebold. Remember those names?
Yeah.
They were college guys who were kind of command and control guys, might throw upper 80s. Maybe they were like 4th, 5th starters if you got lucky, you know. Justin Crawford, over on the hitting side, Justin Crawford, their most recent first round pick. Top of the line speed, you know, projectable physical tools, but speed that, you know, speed to burn. And that's a major league tool probably right now. Compare that to, say, an Adam Hazley. You know, when the Phillies drafted Adam Hazley, he had a good college career at Virginia, was a top 10 pick. But I don't think people were really projecting him as a future all-star. He was kind of thought of as, you know, probably a league average starter at best, but not somebody who had, you know, any tools that really knocked your socks off when you watched him play. So it's that emphasis in the draft on top of the line tools.
So do you think that's just a goal of the top part of the draft? Or do you think that they're looking for this at sort of every pick? Because I can understand it. Like, hey, for our first like 4 picks, why not take a shot at the guys with the highest upside potential? You know, if they can build their development program to the point where they're, again, we all know baseball, like these things work out, what, 20% of the time with these draft picks? I don't know. That might be a very generous number. But you have to think that taking your shot with those maybe first 3, 4, 5 rounds of the draft where guys have that potential, and then do you think there's a different mindset as they start to go lower and lower? Or at every point, do you think they're looking like, well, this guy, kind of like you said, has at least one of these things that projects to a major league level? And if we can do something, you know, if we can get our development to a point that we can at least get the other stuff good enough, like this is a person who could help us.
I would say it's still a combination of both to some extent, but I think you can still look at even later rounds and guys that have a certain tool that the club can dream on. Mm-hmm. And if maybe get something worked out, then they might have something. A couple of guys that I'm thinking of. One guy down at Jersey Shore last year that I had the chance to see was Casey Martin.
Oh yeah,
who was an infielder from Arkansas.
Yeah,
and had a really great freshman year at Arkansas. Then kind of had a couple of down years. This is a guy that can pick it at shortstop. I had the chance to see him play down there. made a lot of tremendous plays. Had a very good base runner, excellent speed. His problem is making contact, and he's a lot of guys like that, right? The minor leagues is full of guys who have, just have that flaw, can't hit the curveball or the high fastball or whatever it may be. And that's what Casey's been struggling with ever since he's been in the system. And I think the Phillies felt like, boy, if we could ever get that hit tool to even an average level, we've got a major league player.
Yeah.
Thinking about a couple of guys in camp now, Andrew Baker, for example. Not a high draft pick, right? But somebody who can throw at 100 miles an hour. And so if you can work out some of the command difficulties that he had in college and in the first half of the minor league season last year, you could have a contributor to your bullpen. So they still look at tools even later than the first round or two of the draft. But of course, you're going to fill out your clubs with organizational guys too, who do have maybe a little bit more of a track record in high school or college, but may not necessarily be likely major leaguers. I do think, though, that whenever they have the opportunity, the Phillies do look at guys with top end tools maybe a little bit more than they did under the previous regime.
Yeah. And again, I know I'm asking questions that are just off the cuff, but I'm thinking, do you see them doing this because they're emulating sort of those teams that everyone looks at as those teams that do this stuff really, really well? Everyone always brings up the Rays. Everyone always brings up the Dodgers as teams Astros, thank you, as teams that, have figured this thing out. Like they've gotten the key to the system almost. They figured how to drive this car. Do you see it as an emulation of that kind of things? And finally someone came in who was just like, look, these teams are doing this. Why? Like, there's no reason why we can't do this. Or is it more like, do you think the old, like Mike was asking at first, 3 years ago, did they just have some sort of ego that they wanted to do it a certain way? Or in your mind, were they trying to sort of prove a point somehow? And finally, Mattingly's coming in being like, guys, like the solution's out there. Like someone's figured this out already. We're a good enough team in a big enough market that like we can figure this out too. Like it's, like baseball is a copycat sport, like everybody says.
Yeah, Regz, I think it's more the former, that they took a look at what some of the winning organizations have done over the past 10, 12 years, whatever it may be. Yeah. And tried to take some of the strategies from those clubs and see what they could apply to their own. No need to reinvent the wheel, but I think Dave Dombrowski has shown, what his preference is. He believes you win with stars. Yeah. And what makes star players in Major League Baseball? Well, the first thing is you got to have top end talent, and then put in the work and whatever it may be to maximize that talent. But you can't teach a guy to throw 99 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's right.
But maybe if you get 5 of them together in your system, 1 or 2 of them, you might be able to teach some command and control. Yeah, and then you have something. Yeah. So I think it's more taking what winning organizations have done and seeing what they could do in the Phillies program, get that going.
Yeah.
Even some of the safer picks you mentioned Hazley. One that you didn't mention, who I think of in sort of that, like, could be this, but like there's nothing really projectable there, was like Eric Miller. Well, what Dombrowski did was turn around and trade those guys for dudes who could be, right? He traded for McKinley Moore using Hazley, and he traded for Junior Marte using Eric Miller. 2 guys who do throw hard, who do have that bullpen high altitude stuff, right? Like there's high velocity in both of them. Put away stuff that, look, there's some control with both of them, but if they figure out how to harness that, and Caleb Cottom has shown, and the organization has shown with a guy like Jose Alvarado that they can do that, those are worth it, right? Like we know what Hazley was, we know what Eric Miller was, but we don't know what Junior Marte could be, and it could be really fun. Really fun. Sure. Really fun. Sure. So you mentioned, and I'm gonna jump around a little bit here. But you mentioned the hard throwers, the big arms, the top picks, right? We know the Phillies organization right now has 3 dudes that they're hoping for to pan out. At least 2. 2 of them who were first round picks and one who has come along, didn't really look great today, unfortunately, but these things happen. And I'm speaking to Andrew Painter, Griff McGarry, and Mick Gable. So look, you said it before. We're not going to get into how good is Andrew Painter. I think the writing's on the wall. We saw it yesterday. You can certainly speak to that. But if you want to talk a little bit to like the ceilings of these guys, what we could get from them at capacity and what you know about them, that maybe we just wouldn't know by watching and reading the things we're watching and reading, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I guess I'll start with Andrew Painter. Why not start at the top? Obviously, the most talked about guy in the system. I think back to Cole Hamels maybe about 15 years ago in terms of the most ballyhooed pitching prospects I've ever seen in the Phillies farm system. I remember the excitement when Cole Hamels made his first start out in Cincinnati after the numbers that he put up in the minor leagues, and the hype around Andrew Painter, it could even be greater than that. Yeah. Given the level of coverage that we have in the minor leagues now. Everybody knows his background. He was the 2021 first round pick out of a high school in Florida. What I think of first when I think of Andrew Painter, and I did have the chance to see him pitch at Jersey Shore. He was not there very long because he made his way right out of there up to Reading. But he made it look. I will say he made it look easy. If you could, sit down at a table and kind of draw up almost the perfect pitching prospect, I think I would come up with something that looks like Andrew Painter.
That's music to my ears.
He just, he just has the build. He's tall and very athletic. He's got a smooth delivery. That's going to be something that is very predictive of good command. Guys with very smooth and repeatable deliveries are more likely to be able to command and control the baseball. And I see that out of him. He's not one of those herky-jerky, funky motion guys. He's very consistent, smooth in his mechanics. He's very athletic. I mean, even from fielding his position, covering first base, he makes that look easy. He played basketball in high school. That's, I think speaks to his athleticism on some level. And the stuff is top of the line. You saw it yesterday, mid to upper 90s with the fastball. He can work up in the zone. He works, all 4 quadrants really when you think about it. Best breaking ball to me is kind of slurvy. It's got a lot of tilt to it. And is I think would be a really great weapon against right-handed hitters. One of the areas of development that I think can still come and improve for him is really 2 things. One is the changeup. He hasn't had to use it very much so far because his fastball and breaking ball have been so effective. You look at his numbers in the minor leagues, and it's like, what more does this guy need? Yeah. But in order to get some of the most advanced hitters out, major league hitters, especially lefties, he's going to need a changeup in order to kind of keep them off the hard stuff. And we also see him developing a cutter, this spring. And that's just another weapon that he's going to be able to use, especially against those left-handed hitters. He's also really impressed in terms of his work ethic, just being a sponge and listening to the older pitchers like Zach Wheeler, for example, in camp this year. He's a really humble kid, but he gets it in that respect too. And, so the physical side, the mental side, it's all there. He just needs experience, and I think you're looking at a top of the rotation starter within, I'd say, 2 to 3 years. Just bringing up that workload, just giving him some experience around the league. Knock on wood, just good health. If he can have those things, I think we have a top of the rotation starter.
smile hasn't left Azzy's face this whole time.
No, and it won't. It's not going to. It's not going to. Brian, I've talked so much on the show. You've probably heard it. I don't know that I've been this excited about a prospect ever. Like, period. End of sentence. So I'm not going to stop smiling unless you tell me something bad about Mick Abel or Griff McGarry. So I'll let you talk about them now.
Well, let's do it. Mick Abel, and probably my favorite day from a baseball standpoint last year working with the Blue Claws was there was a Saturday where they had a doubleheader. The first game was started by Mick Abel, and the second game was started by Andrew Painter.
There you go.
It was Saturday in August.
A nice little Saturday for you.
Right.
Yeah. It was like my perfect Saturday as a minor league fan. And Mick pitched very well, if I remember correctly. There's 7-inning games, of course, in the minor leagues when you have a doubleheader. Mick, I want to say he gave up 1 run in 6 innings and got the win. Did a really solid job. And then here comes Andrew Painter. 7 shutout innings, complete game victory, struck out like 9 or 10 guys. And I was like, 13 innings, 1 run, 2 wins. What was really not a good Blue Claws team last year overall. I was like, we'll take it. It was a great day. But on to Mick Abel, I think if anything, Abel had a steady but not spectacular year last year. He was pretty unanimously the number 1 prospect coming into the season last year. I think he was, you could say, passed or overshadowed by what was an incredible season from Andrew Painter. I think he still is a solid prospect. You'll see him ranked probably in the middle of most top 100 rankings in MLB in the prospects. In the 50, 60, maybe 70 range on the high end. Still a quality prospect who's developing fine. His fastball is maybe a tick below Painter's, typically in the mid-90s, 95, 96. He's got a slider and a slow curve. For him, what he needs to work on, and he'll probably start this year in Double-A, is consistency with the fastball command. There were starts last year where he would get through the lineup for the first time and look great, put together 3 innings and be really sharp, and then just kind of lose it for an inning. Put a couple of guys on base, give up a homer, and it could happen in 2 minutes, and then he might get it back again, he might not. But I think that's kind of the growing pains of a young prospect. If you compare him to, say, Andrew Painter, yeah, you might think he had a little bit of a disappointing season last year. But I don't really think that. I think he, again, had a pretty steady season. I like that the Phillies stretched him out and had him pitch right to the end of the season last year, just to kind of get him accustomed to throwing over, 110, 120 innings in a season. So they can probably get him up to 140, 145 innings this year and give him a full season. If you remember, of course, his 2020 season, his draft season, was pretty much wiped out by the pandemic. And in 2021, he had some shoulder problems the second half of the season. So I think just having a healthy season was helpful to Abel, just to give him some experience on the mound and give him a better sense of what he needs to work on in order to work his way all the way up to Philadelphia.
Perfect. I think with him, some of it is we have this high expectation of Andrew Painter now, right? Like you said, he got passed a little bit, and there's this. Well, he was a first-round pick, so was Abel. They should both be, but there's a different process and a different development rate for everybody. Andrew Painter's an enigma.
Yeah, right.
He's not your typical developmental story. That those things don't just happen. And I love Tom McCarthy talking about it on the Fanatic this week. Like, he's gonna get hit. Like he's gonna get hit. It's the reality. He's 20 years old. These things don't just happen the way that we want him to, and we don't want him to happen. We don't want him to be so good this year that next year when he does get hit around, it's like meltdown city in the fan base, meltdown city in the media. Like we do want some lumps, not too many, but some. Ultimately though, I still believe that there's a really good starter in Mick Abel. Like I truly believe that there's a really good starter somewhere in there. I just think he gets lost a little bit in that like conversation because of how well Andrew Painter has developed through the system. And how about Griff? Give us that last round out with Griff, and then we'll move on to some other prospects.
Sure. Griff didn't have the best day today, of course, down at Fort Myers. So, but I don't know that that's really reflective of him, in the big picture. Like you said, they're all going to have their bad days, and Griff had one today. But he might actually have the biggest arm in the system, in terms of his fastball velocity, being a guy that can hit 100 miles an hour with regularity. As everyone saw today, though, the issue with him is going to be throwing strikes. He came out of the University of Virginia as a fifth-round pick of the Phillies, but he was removed from their rotation in his last year in Virginia because of control problems. And the Phillies actually scouted him near the time of the draft when he was coming out of the bullpen. And he happened to, show that stuff. And I think they were intrigued by it and thought if they could get their hands on him and see what their development guys could do, that they might have something. I think with McGarry also, the question is going to be, is he a starter? Is he a reliever? And I know that the Phillies are continuing to develop him as a starter. They want to stretch him out and they want to develop his repertoire, including his breaking ball and whether it's a cutter or a change. But at the end of last year, there was some thought that they might make him into a reliever and see if he could help them in the stretch run, which not to happen for a couple of different reasons. But he is someone that may not have the same likelihood of reaching his ceiling as, say, a Painter or even a Mick Abel, just because of that question of is he going to be able to have control and command of his stuff.
Awesome. I feel like when I look at these guys, there's one that will definitely help the big club this year, and I think we all know who that one is. I think Abel, like you said, is probably a year away. With everything going down, he'll be at AA and have to climb his way through AAA. McGarry's still got to figure it out. You're right, and if they want him to be a starter, then that's not happening this year. They do have a little bit of depth in that regard with Bailey Falter and Chris Sanchez kind of sitting there if need be, and you can always use Nick Nelson in spots and things like that. They've done that, right? So, if they want him as a reliever, if they decide to transition him and they feel like that's the best possible route, he could potentially help this year. But my guess is that Andrew Painter's the main contributor this year of the three, and I think that's the likeliest case. Would you agree with that?
No question about it. I think that the Phillies want Andrew Painter to win that fifth starter's job. You've kind of heard that over the off season, sort of through the grapevine, and I think now that they're in camp, they've been pretty forward about it. I think that it would be, at this point, I think that it would be a surprise if he does not break camp with the club as the fifth starter. I could see them doing things like getting to a six-man rotation, eventually to kind of nurse him along. But I would be surprised right now if he's not part of the big club early on. And I do agree that Abel and McGarry are most likely a year away.
Yeah. And I think not even just surprised. I almost feel like I'm going to be disappointed if he doesn't come north. I feel like there's going to be like this feeling of what happened, because again, and I like Bailey Falter. I think Bailey Falter did a lot for this team last year when they were really struggling. He was basically their stopper for over a month when they needed a win. He was phenomenal for them. But when you look at the grand scheme of the season, this rotation looks really differently with Andrew Painter anchoring the 5th spot behind the top 2, Ranger, and Taijuan Walker, than Bailey Falter as that 5th guy. And again, I love Bailey Falter. I think he's the perfect guy to slide in an injury, or if you're going to try, you have a stretch of games or a stretch of days where you have like 15 straight games, you slide him in there so that you get an extra day off for Wheeler, Nola, Painter in those situations. And he's a great long man. He's a great guy to put in games where you're winning by 8 or, you know, up or down by 5. And you're like, I just got to eat a couple innings here. He's going to have to take it on the chin. So yeah, there's a sense of disappointment in that too. But while we talk about, you know, guys who can impact the club this year, certainly we know Andrew Painter is the guy. But are there any other prospects aside from him and potentially a bullpen Griff McGarry in the system, or guys that have just been brought over to the system that you could potentially see as, hey, they could impact the team this year? They could be guys that come and do what we talked about with like Nick Maton last year. What we talked about with Matt Vierling, who came out of nowhere. He made the team, but sort of became a big part of that roster as the year went along, had some big moments. Are there guys like that we can look to this year, or is it pretty much what we know?
Well, obviously, this is a pretty stacked roster at the MLB level right now. So
Feels
barring,
good, doesn't it?
yeah, it sure does. So barring injury, I think it's likely to be some of those fill-in contributors, those types of guys. But I'll throw a couple of names out there for you. One we saw with the big club at the end of last year, a bit for a cup of coffee, and one that we haven't seen as much of. So. One would be Dalton Guthrie. I think Dalton Guthrie, he's been with the organization a number of years. He's a versatile guy. He did actually contribute to a couple of wins in September last year. He could do a lot of things. You know, he plays a lot of positions. He can put the bat on the ball, can run a little bit. He's actually, his father was a pitcher in the major leagues, Mark Guthrie. So he's been around a major league clubhouse. So he knows how to act. You know, he is a guy, a right-handed hitter that could make the club as a backup center fielder. Really utility guy, but can play center field. So if you're looking to give Brandon Marsh a day off against a tough lefty, you know, Guthrie has a chance to be that guy. Another guy is Simon Muzziotti, who has also been in the organization for a while, but he's really kind of had a bumpy road in terms of his ability to stay on the field, really to stay healthy. But he is a left-handed hitter and also a guy who's probably major league ready now in terms of his defensive ability. But the question is, you know, can he hit well enough to really sustain a spot on the roster? You know, if not a regular job in the majors. But he's a guy, if Brandon Marsh, you know, pulls a hamstring and, you know, has to go down for, you know, 10 days, 2 weeks, you know, again, knock on wood, we don't want that to happen. But, you know, Muzziotti is probably a guy that they would call up and put out there, at least to start against right-handers. And the kind of guy that could probably win you a couple of games with his speed and defense. Here's a wild card I'll throw at you that's a little bit off the wall.
Here we go.
Wild cards.
Here we go.
All right. Now this could, you know, this could not work out at all. But how about Noah Song? Let's not forget. Let's not forget about the Phillies Rule 5 pick that they got from the Red Sox. This is a guy who was considered when he came out in 2019 to be one of the top starting pitchers in college baseball when he was at the Naval Academy. Now, of course, he went and did his tour of duty in the Navy. I think, you know, when the news came out a couple of weeks ago, nobody was expecting to, you know, for that to happen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's released from his commitment, and the next day he's in camp. We haven't heard a lot about him since then. So, you know, I think he's thrown a couple of bullpens maybe, but I have to say I have not heard anything about what the initial reports are, how he's looking. But wouldn't it be something if a few weeks from now, Noah Song makes the club and contributes this year. It totally could not happen, and I would say the odds are still against it. But I don't think Dave Dombrowski plucked him from the Red Sox organization for no reason.
Yeah.
I think that's a roll of the dice that was worth taking. If he comes back and doesn't show anything, they can send him back, and no harm, no foul. But he was with the Red Sox organization, Dombrowski, when they drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows, I believe, that there's something there. And so that's just a name to kind of put in the back of your mind. In 2 or 3 weeks from now, let's see where he is, and if he has a chance to stick with the big club, which of course he has to do in order to not be offered back to the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So Noah Song, we'll see what happens with it.
That could be fun, and here's the reason why I'd play devil's advocate, that even potentially likely. And let me just spit this for a second. So right now we would say probably that 8th bullpen spot, which doesn't necessarily matter in the long run, would be a Bailey Falter or Nick Nelson, right? We could say that with almost certainty without Brian Song in the conversation. With that being said, if that's your 6-7 starter, wouldn't you want the beginning of the year to potentially be about stretching them out and giving them starts so that if you do need them, they can go start, right? Just for argument's sake. And then Brian Song, who Dombrowski has already said, we're not going to be able to stretch him out in enough time to be a starter. So right now he's likely heading for the bullpen if he makes the roster. Well, if you're looking for that 8th guy who you're probably, hopefully, only using in blowouts or, on days where you've got 4 guys that can't go because you had a long bullpen game the day before for some reason, it's fair with their roster to maybe stash him. I don't know. Is it just for argument's sake? Because I kind of want it to happen. I liked the pick when it happened, and I thought it was a very Dave Dombrowski move. And I texted my dad, and I was like, Dave Dombrowski has someone in the Naval Academy who told him he was being discharged because nobody else touched the guy. This is happening. So I don't know. Just for fun.
It has been amazing that we haven't heard anything. Like, there were a ton of articles the day of, like when everyone found out it was happening, ton of stuff. First day he's in there, you get the nuggets about like him throwing off a mound again and saying like, oh boy, like this is weird. But since then, it's been almost silent. And you could take that 2 ways. That it looked really bad, and they're just like keeping him away from public pressure and all that because it is such a story that, of course, they don't want to subject this kid to, looking terrible and that getting out and all that stuff. Just as a person, they're trying to, sort of shelter him from that. Or like, I don't know, there's a chance it could be going really well. Like, who knows? Like, we have no idea. We heard he was here, he was coming, he was here. It was weird to throw off a mound. And then we've heard literally nothing since.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a fun ride.
He could be a secret weapon.
That's right.
At the end of camp, that just kind of appears and makes the club. I just think he was picked for a reason. I think in a way similar to Painter, that they want Painter to be the 5th starter. I think there's a piece there where they would love for Noah Song to be that guy that can stick and find a way to make it work during the course of 162 games.
Love it. I love it. I'm hoping for it.
Remember you heard it here first.
That's right. That's right. We always say that. Eventually someone's going to be listening. That's important.
Yeah, someone's going to be like, oh, these guys.
One of these days it's going to happen.
Couple more system questions, and then a couple of big league roster questions, and then we'll begrudgingly let you go because this is awesome. We're loving this. As baseball nerds, this is the coolest conversation to have. So I noticed that in there was a couple center fielders. There was a pitcher. We talked about pitchers before. Doesn't seem to be a corner infielder or corner outfielder that we could say, oh, he could transition to be the next Reese guy, because right now there's a story that came out about Reese Hoskins and the Phillies not engaging in any extension conversations. And look, from a Philly fan perspective, I'll always love the Reese Hoskins story of he's kind of the only guy left from what were some pretty rough years to watch. And it was like he and Hector, and then Hector went, and then it was just Reese. And Reese had some incredible moments in the postseason. He also has some really frustrating ones too. But the incredible ones still stand out far above the frustrating ones for me, because I never felt like Reese was the reason why they lost the World Series. Like, I never felt that way. They won games because of other guys at times, and they won series because of other guys at times, but they don't win the NLCS without Reese Hoskins. And I would argue up and down about that, because he was so big in multiple games. But there's a real chance that this is the last season we watch Reese Hoskins play first base. I'd put the odds well at 99% right now that Reese Hoskins is not going to be back in a Phillies uniform. I just don't see it happening as a Boris client. I don't see it happening. So what the heck are they going to do, Brian? Is there anybody who can play first base?
Well, a year is a long time in baseball, and so it's you never know. I do agree, though, that it's highly unlikely, at least the way things look right now, that Reese will be back in 2024. You just kind of get that feeling when you see the interviews with him in spring training. Sort of everybody knows that this is his last go around. But so. I was thinking back to the scenario maybe 15 years ago when we had Jim Thome at first base, and we had a kid down in AA and AAA, smashing home runs by the name of Ryan Howard, and it was just the easiest thing in the world to put a Ryan Howard at first base as Jim Thome was exiting. Well, as we all know, we don't have anything like that in our system right now. I think that there are a variety of potential solutions here, though. Some of them within the organization, some of them probably outside the organization we don't know about yet. I think there are a lot of people that see Alec Boehm as ultimately a first baseman. I would say that Boehm made a lot of strides defensively last year, from, as everybody knows, the terrible beginning of the season to somebody who was making, if not all the plays, the vast majority of the plays, and even some great plays by the end of the season at third base. And but I think the majority of people in the industry still project him as a first baseman long term. So if the Phillies want to do that, they could move Boehm over to first, and third baseman could be someone in the organization now, like Sosa, or it could be somebody outside the organization. Phillies also have, as we know, several kind of outfielder, DH, maybe eventually first baseman types too. Do you give Nick Castellanos a look at first base? Kyle Schwarber. I don't actually know how much history either of them has playing first base. So that's something.
Schwarber tried it with the Red Sox, right, for a little while. He was not very good at it, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
But eventually Bryce Harper is going to be back in right field, right?
Yeah.
And so, that leaves, that leaves Schwarber or Castellanos to they don't have to be an outfielder anymore. They can either DH or move to first base a little more easily. I don't want to rule out Derek Hall either, just yet. I do not. As we sit here today, I do not believe that Derek Hall is the full-time solution as the next first baseman of the club. But, if he hits, 15 home runs in the first half of the season before Bryce comes back, don't you have to give him a little bit longer audition? He could just be one of those guys that forces his way into the picture. whether it's Derek Hall or moving Alec Boehm or kind of mixing and matching with guys like Schwarber, Castellanos, or just go and sign a Matt Chapman, for example, who I believe is a free agent after this year. So then you'd be moving Boehm the first, of course. So I think it's a wait and see. I don't think we know the answer just yet as to who the first baseman on opening day in 24 is going to be.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this just for fun, and he might be one of your answers to the next question. So if he is, I apologize. Really cool story in camp is Carlos De La Cruz. Really cool story, and if you haven't seen it, look it up. He's a fun story to like. His story is incredible. The way that he came about becoming a Phillies prospect, basically like playing pickup ball. They saw him and like now here he is. And I mean, look, Keith Law kind of puts it really well. He is going to be either fall flat on your face type of guy, or you're going to strike it big with like 25 home runs type of guy with him. How far away is he? Obviously, probably not next year, but is there a situation or a possibility, a path that would lead to a 1-year plug and play at first base and De La Cruz could step in and be a first baseman? Or are we looking more potentially an outfielder with him?
Yeah. So, what an intriguing prospect he is. And he really kind of came from out of nowhere, I would say, in the second half of the season last year and put himself on the map. He was down at Jersey Shore. There were kind of 4 outfielders that they were rotating in and out of the lineup, and De La Cruz was just one of those guys. Then all of a sudden he got hot and had a really great, I think it was a month of July, down at Jersey Shore. So you just saw some of that physical potential finally translating into some baseball skills. Putting the bat on the ball, making more consistent contact and consistent hard contact was, and really still is, but was the challenge for him. And so you saw some improvement in his strikeout numbers, for example. You saw him drawing an occasional walk, and of course you saw him hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And so eventually, after that hot month in Jersey Shore, he got promoted to Reading and had a nice finish there. So now he's ranked 9th in the Phillies top 10 prospects on MLB.com. He mostly has played outfield so far. So I think they still project him there. It's a rare set of tools, though. How many 6'8" guys, you see? The Phillies ever, if they have a pickup basketball program,
right.
He'd probably be a high draft pick in their organization. Right? But, he's exciting just for the uniqueness that he brings in terms of his physical tools. So, it's I think he's 23 years old now. So, he still does have some time. I think, even with like the COVID year, there's every prospect has kind of been delayed at least, a year, maybe 2 years in some cases. Uh-huh. So you can't always say a 24, 25-year-old is too old at this point, because they've all lost some development time in the last couple of years. So he's still got a ways to go, but he's opened some eyes, I would say, and although I wouldn't say it's a high probability, still of him, becoming a major league regular, you can at least dream on it now.
Well, I'm going to keep dreaming on it then. I'm good with that.
6'8" is a lot of catch radius. It's a big old catch radius that he's got.
Big boy. It's a big boy. All right. So obviously he's one that I'm excited to watch this spring. Brian, give us like a player or two that, they have no chance of contributing this year, but hey, look at these guys. They're fun to watch. Give us a player or two like that we can focus on this spring.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a couple of names for you. One would be Johan Rojas.
Azzy's guy.
Yeah. So I had the chance to watch him play most of the season in Jersey Shore last year. And this guy is an exciting player to watch. He has top of the line speed, and he knows how to use it too. He stole um, probably about bases at about a 90% success rate last year. I think he stole like 55 bases and got caught like 5 times. It took quite a while for him to get caught for the first time last year. I recall probably into June before he even got caught for the first time.
I thought someone said 62 on the broadcast the other day.
Yeah, that might be right. I don't
Which
have the
I
exact
heard, and
number,
I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, "What?" I was like, "What was that number?"
Oh, I have to tell you, like every time he got on base, you're like, he's going, man.
Yeah.
Like he way back in the day, Rich Ashburn used to say guys looked runnerish when they got to first base. You kind of thought they were going to steal. Well, this is a guy that is runnerish every time he gets on first base. And with the new rules, who knows what he might be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is he is a smooth cruiser in the outfield. I mean, I'm not going to compare him directly to Andrew Jones, okay? Because he's probably the best center fielder of all time in his prime. But he glides around out there and just runs under baseballs that are hitting in the gap, and just the ball just plops into that glove that he sticks out, and you're like, how did he do that? and then he'll score from first base on a single, or steal second and steal third within three. He's got game-changing speed. And, the question for him, he plays with a flair, too. He is an exciting player to watch. And so the question for him is going to be, will he hit? And we're going to have to wait and see on that. I think he's got some pop, definitely gap power, can knock one over the fence every now and then, but he's going to have to use his speed, I think, and improve his plate discipline a little bit, and probably be a guy that bats toward the bottom of the order if he becomes a regular player. But he's got the kind of speed and defensive ability that can help you win games and can maybe make an impact, say, as a pinch runner or defensive replacement, even this season.
Awesome.
The other guy I want to mention, I wouldn't want to get off here without mentioning him, is Hao-Yu Lee. Hao-Yu Lee is a guy who played most of the season in Clearwater last year. He missed about a month because he was hit by a pitch. I think it broke his hand. But he finished the season in Jersey Shore, and this guy is someone they signed out of Taiwan. He's an infielder, and he can really hit. He pretty much, by all accounts, just knows what he's doing at the plate, loves to hit, and really, from Clearwater up to Jersey Shore, showed that ability. Funny little Hao-Yu Lee story that I remember from last year is one day I was in the press box and there were a couple of Taiwanese women who were like freelance journalists who had flown in to watch him play. and the how like Japanese reporters follow Ichiro back in the day, or Shohei Ohtani, today. It's like he had his couple of people follow. There were 3 of them actually who were there. Just flew in, and when they come off the plane and they come to the Blue Claws game, it's like okay.
I was about to say, talk about a culture shock.
Yes. So and they were very nice, but the Blue Claws, they weren't having a good night. They were losing 6-7-0. In about the 5th inning, Hao-Yu Lee hits this long home run. I was like, well, all right, you just this is what you came to see, kind of, right?
All worth it now.
And so the next half inning, Hao-Yu Lee is not out in the field. And I'm like, what happened? Did he pull a muscle on the swing or something? And lo and behold, he was taken out of the game by the Phillies because he flipped his bat. after he made contact with the ball, and trying to teach him not to show off after hitting a home run when you're down 6 or 7 runs.
Wow.
They sat him for the game. So
Wow.
a little bit of the Phillies way coming out there.
Wow. Okay.
But
That's
so then they
incredible.
Then they packed up and left. But
what those are two of our favorites here on the show. We don't mention them a whole lot. I think I've mentioned Rojas a few times, guy that I really like, and that I'd like to see around. Lee we've touched on, but never really super in depth as to why we like him. So that's really good insight. Thanks, Brian. That's great. That's a great story too.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I think there was an article about him earlier in the spring also that said he learned a lot of English by watching guys trash talking.
Yeah, that's right.
Bench jockeying, So he's definitely, picking up the culture, if you will, which is a good sign too. So he's great. He's someone to keep an eye on this year also.
Awesome. Well, we can't, as much as we loved all the minor league insight, which was incredible. Like, that is awesome stuff. I can't let you out of here without asking you a couple of big club questions. So I'm gonna roll them together for you. Okay. We spent our last episode talking about things we were bullish on, whether they be players or just situations. So give us a player or something about the team that you're bullish on, and then a prediction for this team. And it doesn't have to be record, but like where they're going to finish. You could do both. I don't care. But we got to ask you, bullish on and a prediction.
Well, so I could give you an obvious answer, like I'm bullish about Trey Turner, right? I think he's going to make such a tremendous impact on this team. But Trey aside, the guy that I'm going to pick for this is Alec Bohm.
Rexy Boo.
I love it.
Yeah, and I was just so impressed by the improvement that Alec made as a player and a person last year. I really think that I effing hate this place night was a transformative moment in his career. I really believe that. He could have denied having said that and basically been booed off the team and traded. I have a feeling that somebody took him aside in the locker room and said, listen, you just got to own it, and then it'll go away. And, God bless him. That's exactly what he did. Everybody cheered him the next night. All of a sudden, he starts feeling, I believe he gains more confidence, starts feeling like he belongs, and starts playing like it. And, he wound up hitting 285 with 13 homers last year and improved defensively as the year went on. I think there's a lot more there, in short. I think he's a guy that knows how to hit in terms of using all fields. I love that right center field stroke.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That home run that he hit in the first game, I believe it was the first spring game this year, he pulls that home run to left center field.
Yeah.
You hear that he's gained 15 pounds of good weight in the off season. I believe in his ability to put it all together and come up with a season where he hits that 285, 290, that jacks up the home runs to 22, 25.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be huge for this lineup
in a full season. And a guy that might not be batting 7th or 8th, by the end of the season. So I'm bullish on Alec Bohm.
When you think about the sequence of events that led to that night, like he comes in his rookie year, he like comes in like a barn burner, he's hitting like crazy. Yeah. Everyone's like, who cares about the defense? Like if he hits like this, just keep him around. He comes back the next year, he's not doing as well. That's when the fielding stuff really starts to escalate, when you're not doing the one thing that the fans can cheer about, that's what everyone gets on you for. And then that night, like I think you're absolutely right, Brian. I think if he doesn't handle that night the right way, he might not even be on this team. Like he could have very easily been one of the trade pieces that they send off somewhere else to really try and get somebody back. I think it was that important of a moment for him and this team and this city. Like we've seen that happen a bunch of times, and we talk about this all the time on the podcast, how you need certain types of guys to play in Philadelphia. You need guys who can own up to stuff, have a thick skin, and just you saw the way that he was treated the very next night. It wasn't like a week later. He had to come out the next night in front of the home fans. And they cheered, and they literally had t-shirts ready like the next 3 days later with that same exact thing. And now, like,
I still have to buy one.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I just think you're just so right about that being such an important moment. And you really do. And again, a lot of stuff came out that night about Castellanos like standing right behind him while the media's, getting on him in the locker room, not saying anything, but just being there as like a, hey man, like we got your back. Just do what you got to do, own it, move on, and you'll be all the better for it. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I'm with you, man. We talked about this on the last pod, but like, I can't wait for him to hit like 25 home runs or 30. Like, just get it way up there.
Just insane.
But that right field swing, like, gosh, is it good? Like his ability to just watch that pitch forever and just take it that way, like it's so good.
He has an uncanny ability to stay inside the baseball, which is really, really hard to do, but it's what great hitters do. Yeah. And it's what Nick Castellanos did for years before last year. So hopefully
we'll do again. We'll do again.
Yes, he will. All right, Brian, final thought. Prediction for this team. What's it going to be?
Well, I'll start here. The win total out in Las Vegas, the guys in the desert have it at 88.5. So if I were a betting man, which I'm not allowed to be because I work
that's right
in a minor league system. So let me get that on there for the record.
Purely hypothetical.
Purely hypothetical for entertainment purposes.
That's
only.
right.
I have them at 91 wins. I think that Trey Turner being here for a full year is going to help offset not having Bryce for the first 2.5 months, whatever it is. I think the difference between him and Gene Segura, of course, nothing against Gene, but Gene was out part of that time last year too with his injury. So some combination of Maton or Bryson Stott early on. Trey's going to make up for a few of those wins as well. So I have them at 91 wins. I think I look at the starting rotation as a key. On the front end, will Nola and Wheeler be able to kind of bounce back from the heavy workloads that they had last year, adding all those innings in the postseason? I think initially, at least, the signs look good in that area. Both of them look good their first time out. They say they're feeling good. So that's a positive step. I think they're going to need that depth in the rotation to help them get through 162 games, whether it be Painter or Falter or someone we don't really think about yet. I believe that they're going to, I think it's at least 50-50 that they're going to make a trade at the deadline at a starter also. Now, how good of a guy they're going to shop for, I think remains to be seen. It depends on a number of things, right?
Yeah.
But if I had to identify an area that they will look to add to at the deadline, I would say it's probably starting pitching right now, and I think how that pans out is going to be a key to whether they can win more than the 91 I have or not. That's where it sits for me. I could see them finishing second in the division. I don't know that they can overtake both Atlanta and New York, but I do see this as a playoff team, and once they get there, we'll see what happens.
So what you're saying is that they're going to get the 2 more wins and we're going to win a World Series next year.
Me back on in September, and I'll let you know.
There you go. I like that.
Oh, we gotta get you back on before that, man. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on. This was great. We really appreciate.
Yeah, my
we really
pleasure.
appreciate all the knowledge. We're gonna have to find a way to tap into that knowledge during the regular season with all the minor league stuff going on. So we'll be talking, man, about ways to incorporate these conversations as the year goes on. But certainly want to thank you again for coming on and talking to us and presenting this really in-depth minor league knowledge that Regz and I just don't have. Like I follow it, I read about it, but seeing it firsthand, experiencing it firsthand, that was awesome. So Brian, thanks so much for coming on the show, and we truly appreciate your time and appreciate you as a listener too. So thanks on all counts, man.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. Well, we hope you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed doing it. Hopefully listening to it, you gained some perspective on the system and just what is there, because, like he said, they're probably in the bottom third in every ranking article that you read.
Yeah.
But there's some good things happening in the system, Regz, and Brian, just speaking to the person, really knowledgeable, but really kind. But before and after the show, was just grateful to come on and talk to us. And I think my favorite thing that he said when we got off the air was, it was just like being at the bar talking to friends, which is what we want this to be.
That's the sweet spot, right? That's the whole thing we talked about in our very first episode, all 83 episodes ago. That was the whole point.
Wow.
That was the whole point of this podcast. Yeah. And the fact that we're able to, again, bring him on and have just that conversation about this was really great. I think I enjoyed so much his insight, and just, again, he's just a nice person who just knows this stuff about baseball. And you'd walk up to him, probably meet him, and you'd never know. But now he got a chance to like speak to a passion of his and really inform not only everyone who listens, but like me. Like, that was unbelievably informative and insightful about something that even I said during the interview, this is something I just don't have time or the brain capacity for, like, to get this deep into the minors. So it was great.
Yeah. And more on that opportunity in a bit, but let me ask you this: biggest takeaway from what he talked about?
I think the thing that I keep going back to, like, it's even outside of the individual players and all that, it's that the Phillies are finally trying to be like the best teams in baseball who do this well. Yeah. You asked the question in the beginning, like, what's the difference between a couple of years ago and now? And it really is Dave Dombrowski coming in and saying, this is like, you can almost imagine him in a room after he hires these new faces that are leading the development and system in the farm system now. Like, guys, we know how to do this. People have put together organizations that do this really well. It's not rocket science. Like, everyone copies everybody in baseball. And this is just something that we should be able to, we have the right people in place now. This is something we should be able to do. And it's just, again, they're starting from a point where they're at the bottom. That's just where they are. But I think everyone can be really excited that they're on a trajectory to be in that upper third of teams. Yeah. And really just start to have this as something that's almost an afterthought. Like, development of guys and, all that is almost going to be an afterthought in several years, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think going along those same lines, my biggest takeaway was what he said about the Phillies organization going after loud tools.
Yeah, that was a great one.
And I do reflect on the Clentak McPhail regime often, because goodness, what a frustrating time that was. I think you mentioned during the interview, like, when did they transition to trying to be like these smart organizations? I think the problem, Regz, was that they were trying to outsmart the smartest organizations. Right. He mentioned guys like Connor Siebold and Tom Eshelman, who were more, your control type of pitchers. Baseball ain't that no more. Right. Like, there's no Jamie Moyers floating around.
Yeah.
Like you salivate the night you get the dude throwing 93.
Right.
No one throws 93 anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Nola does, but Aaron Nola's a different type.
Yeah.
So he talked about loud tools, and I loved
Yeah, that was a great one.
I loved that because it does speak to what they're doing right now. It does. It speaks to Painter. It speaks to Abel. It speaks to Crawford. It
Yeah.
speaks to guys like Ethan Wilson, Brian Song, someone that he talked about, and that we kind of honed in on a little bit.
Noah Song.
Oh yeah, thank you. Noah Song. Brian Song is a movie.
It is.
It is. It's a sad movie.
It is a sad
Noah
movie.
Song. Thank you. Yeah, Noah Song. Thank you for correcting me. But yeah, I feel like if Noah, I think I said Brian in the
You
show.
did.
Too.
We just kept it rolling.
Yeah.
Yep. You did it like 4 times in a row, and we just kept moving.
I used to love that movie. I have the book on my shelf
you go.
over here too. Oh, that's so bad. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah, but like a guy like Noah Song
Yeah.
to me is like that again, like that loud tool,
Mm-hmm.
right? It speaks to what the organizational change has been.
Yeah.
And Dombrowski has not hidden that for 1 second. He's been very transparent about what they're trying to do. He's not losing the organization. And I even think about guys that are in the organization that were there prior to that they're enhancing these tools with. Johan Rojas.
Yeah.
Like, De La Cruz, who we talked about on the show too. Like he's got a loud hit tool. Everything's hard off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So, you continue to develop that way and you're going to hit on guys.
Yeah.
Like you just look at Painter. That's not a pick that you take lightly. That's a pick that you go after. That's a Brian Barber special. So that's, good stuff, man. Just all around good stuff. And in terms of his appearance, we talked to him after the show and you and I even spoke in our transition to our, intro outro stuff here. I think it'd be great to have Brian come on monthly and just speak to the system.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna do that, man. I think we're gonna get that going.
It's good. Yeah, it's awesome. The thing about this stuff is it changes again, probably more than monthly. Like this stuff changes all the time.
Yeah.
And like Brian said, a year in baseball is a long time.
Yep.
So what we talk about even now and 6 months from now could be very, very different.
Hell yeah.
And to just keep getting his firsthand accounts, I think would be awesome.
For sure. So we're going to do that. We're going to figure out what that's going to look like. Probably our last show of the month. We'll have him pop on, or maybe our first show of the new month. We'll have him pop on and do a short segment. Just kind of talking to us a little bit about what's going on in the minor leagues. Even if it's just one of us interviewing him. Like we just want to know, or a video he sends over to us. We'll figure it out with Brian. But certainly want to get our minor league fill because there's a lot of fun that goes into that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. The time has come.
I feel like I should have a drum roll sound going.
Well, here's the thing. There's a little backstory. This is my Phixated tonight. So I really listen, if y'all voted when I put it out there on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever, if you gave me your input into the Cleat debacle, I want to just say thank you. I want to just take a moment and say thank you because they're Cleats. I'm 35 well, I'm 36
That's
now,
right.
believe it or not.
Yep.
I turned 36 today. Tomorrow or yesterday, if you're listening to it tomorrow. But what am I doing, Vine? Who cares what cleats I wear?
I still have my old high school baseball cleats.
I mean, I've worn the same ones for like 10 years. They have holes in them. So
There you go.
I did need new cleats.
Yeah.
But I think it was, I don't know, dude, between Facebook, Twitter, the amount of response that I got through for these cleats is out of control. 36-year-old guy playing like rec baseball. Who cares? But y'all did, and I love you for it.
I just want to preface, I have no idea what you've chosen.
No one does.
Yeah.
Andrea doesn't know what I chose.
That's fantastic.
So I got there, and it was still pretty split. I think it was like one or two more people said go gold.
Okay.
It was like
Yeah.
pretty much neck and neck, right? So I get there and I get back to the shoe department, and there are two young ladies standing there, and they asked if they could help, and I said, "You sure can," in a couple of ways. The first way being, can I get a 10.5 in these two pairs for, I just need to try them on. That was one of the layers that I had to uncover.
Sure.
So they bring them out. They both go in. They both come back out. I don't know why I took two of them to go get these cleats, but either way, T-shirt. And I said, ladies, here's the other thing that I need from you. I need your input because I'm struggling. So I tried both pairs on. I now know which one feels better, but I had asked for their input.
Okay.
One of them said gray. One of them said gold.
Perfect.
Just what I needed. I was really hoping for both of them to say gray or both of them to say gold. But there was another woman about 5 feet away who must have been shopping for her son, or she was looking at cleats. And she said, "Oh, you got to go with those." And I said, "Well, I don't know you." But the fact that you just chimed in a moment where, you didn't have to, makes me know that this is the right pair. So, random lady in the black hoodie, I appreciate you. And all y'all who chose the white and golds.
Yes.
That's what we went with.
Yes.
We'll be sporting the white and golds.
Did Harper being on the back have anything to do with it?
Honestly, they both had Harper on the back.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, so here are the official winners.
That's fantastic.
We'll be sporting these come April.
We obviously need like a video or photos once they're put into play for the first time.
I mean, I feel like there's a whole...
Someone's got to video the whole first at bat. Like we know someone on that team, right? Someone's got to do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Joe, who's a very faithful listener.
There you go. Show. Joe, this is I'm calling you out right now. This is your responsibility.
There's a good chance that Joe might be on base when I hit.
Oh, damn it. Joe, figure out someone else.
Last year, Joe hit second and I hit third.
Okay, well, Joe,
we last played together.
Figure out who can record Azzy's first at bat in the cleats.
I mean, again, thank you guys.
I'm so happy you picked my choice. I'm so happy.
Thank you so much for indulging in such a silly conversation.
It is ridiculous, but so great all at the same time.
So good. And
I'm so happy that I won. I'm so happy.
Well, I'll make sure that when they get put into play, that everybody experiences.
There'll be a Twitter post. Don't worry, people.
And I will say that they were far more comfortable.
That's fantastic. I'm glad.
Far more comfortable. They have the same they're the same like length to the ankle, but the sole is just like it's not as compressed. Like there's more compression at the bottom of the shoe. So there they are.
Can't wait.
Release. The golds.
So happy.
Unbelievable. What a moment.
I love it.
All right, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Phixated. Regz, did I hear you right? Are we 17 away from 100?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. This is going to be episode number. This will be 83, so I was correct. This is episode 83.
17 episodes away.
Yep. Started all the way back in August 7th of 2021.
We're gonna be on episode 100 by like the end of summer.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's gonna be a call-in episode.
Oh yeah. We're gonna do something special's happening. Don't worry. I don't know what yet, but
we don't know what yet.
Nope.
Yeah, we just get all of them in. Ruben will come back. Jack will come back.
No, you know what we're gonna do? We're going to make this happen. We're going to be in the same room is what we're going to do.
Don't tease me now.
I'm not teasing you. I'm dead serious.
Don't tease me now.
I'm dead serious.
I'm going to count out when the 17. Now, sometimes we do 2 in a week.
I know.
Like, I feel like opening day week, we're going to end up doing 2.
But that's okay. Whatever the 100th episode is going to be, we will be in the same room. Yeah, it's gonna happen.
All right.
There you go.
I mean, we're gonna cheers, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, everything, all those things,
all the stuff.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, you know what? If you are a listener in episode 83 and you have not clicked subscribe, I don't know what you're doing.
Come on, people.
I mean, this is just.
I think there's I think I checked on Spotify. There's only like 24 followers on the podcast on Spotify. More of you listen on Spotify. I know you do.
I know you do. I've seen the stats.
Come on. We believe in you. You can do it.
Click follow. What are you doing? You know what?
It makes it so much easier. It comes into your feed like right away, automatically.
It's time for TikTok, man.
Yeah, that's on you. Like I said, that's on you. I
got it.
I don't have the app on my phone. I'm almost at the point where I'm refusing. I'm not going to do it.
Well, I got one for my new stuff, so I'll make sure. Maybe I'll add one for Phixated and just cut up different parts of the pod. And
that would be awesome.
Have a little fun.
The first one's going to be the light fight. That's what you call the TikTok, the light fight.
No, it's Phixated is the TikTok.
No, I mean the name. Can't you name each one you put up, each post?
I mean, if you can, I don't know.
I don't know. See, I've never done it before, so there you go.
Yeah,
that's how much I know about it.
Well, listen, guys, just subscribe.
It's free.
If we get, I don't know what the number we need is, but if we get to a certain number, Regz has to download TikTok. So,
oh
there
man,
it is.
Can we just give? I'd rather give something away. Do I have to?
I said you have to download it. I didn't say you have to use it.
I don't even want it on my phone. I don't even want it.
Whatever. All right, guys, make sure you click subscribe for the third time now. And then go to all your podcast platforms and click subscribe there. Follow, subscribe, and rate. Please, come on. Like, seriously, it literally takes no time to click 5 stars, which is what we deserve because we work really hard. And then go ahead and follow us on all your socials, Instagram at B&B Podcast, as well as Twitter at B&B Podcast. You can follow the actual pod at the Phixated Pod on Twitter. Follow me at the Mic Drop 5 and Regz at Big Regz with a Z. Regz, send me the stuff for
I will. I'm going to.
The pod Twitter. I'll get back on that now. I promise. And then the Phixated fan page, which is still going strong. We'll be posting a clip of the Cleat Reveal tomorrow. And then on you can click on the merchandise link in the show description. We got to get some new merch up.
Yeah, I think that's a goal for this year. We're gonna refresh the store.
Yeah, we got to refresh the store a little bit. We got to refresh the store. We got to get
good stuff though.
Some sweet hats like
we
this.
Do.
Though, you know,
still good stuff there though. So
for sure. You know what? We should get a hat that says "Light Fight."
We should. Maybe that's a T-shirt.
Do you think we could get our Bitmojis put on a hat?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not at this point.
That might be it.
It's 2023, and I feel like anything like that can happen.
Listen, I would buy that hat for everybody. I would buy that hat for everybody.
There you go.
And it should be like the Step Brothers pose.
Oh, there you go.
Or you giving me a piggyback ride.
Either one.
Or me giving you a piggyback ride.
That's even better. We won't be able to recreate that in real life because Azzy would die. But
we have fallen off the rails. If you've listened this far, God bless you.
That's right.
I'm going to be the only one who listens this far.
I'm going to listen just to this part.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening tonight. We hope you all enjoyed the show. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Brian. We sure did. Brian, again, thanks so much for coming on and spending some time with us. And certainly you'll be back one way or another. We're going to get you on and do some more minor league stuff. But for the time being, we'll see you all next Thursday. We hope you guys have a tremendous week. We love each and every one of you. Take care. Be kind to someone. And we'll see you then. Go. Andrew Painter.
Yeah. I was going to say, God bless Trey Turner. See you, everybody.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.